And I should care about that, but I don't. I keep staring at the door. My sister lives behind this door. She doesn't know I'm coming. She wouldn't have said yes if I'd asked. I was my parents' golden child. My sister spent 20 years in my shadow. Until last year, until I found something I wasn't supposed to find. I thought that was her problem. Then I realized it was mine. And what I'm about to tell you, I've never said out loud. Not to my husband, not to a therapist, not even to the woman whose door I'm staring at right now. Long pause. This is the apology I owe her. And before I can give it to her, I have to give it to you. My name is Margot. I grew up in a yellow house on Linden Street in Briar Hill, Pennsylvania, which is the kind of town that has one good diner and 3 churches and a single stoplight that everyone agrees blinks too long. My parents are Gerald and Lorraine. My father was a quiet man, the kind of quiet that takes up no room in a house. My mother filled the room for both of them, and then there was Tess, my sister, 3 years younger than me. I'm going to tell you about Tess in a minute, but first, I have to tell you something that I didn't understand was a sentence until I was 32 years old. My mother used to say it at dinner parties. She said it to teachers. She said it to neighbors. She said it to relatives at funerals. She said it so many times I stopped hearing it. It became wallpaper, background. She would smile and she would gesture between us and she would say, Margot is the bright one. Tess is the good one. Pause. That's it. That's the sentence. It sounds harmless, doesn't it? It almost sounds like a compliment to both of us. And for 32 years, that's what I believed it was. I want you to sit with that sentence for a second, because I need you to hear it the way Tess heard it, every time, for her entire childhood. Bright and good. One of those is a verb the world rewards, the other is a leash. Beat, I just didn't know I was the one holding it. The thing about being the favorite is, you don't know you are one, not really. You think you're just living. You think the way your mother lights up when you walk into a room is just how mothers are. You think the way your father saves the last piece of pie for you is just because you happen to be the one who likes pie. You don't notice that your sister never gets the pie. Because she doesn't ask for it, and because nobody offers. I was 8 years old when my mother first said the sentence in front of me. We were at my grandmother's house. I had just recited a poem from memory, Annabel Lee by Edgar Allan Poe. I was very proud of myself. I remember the dress I was wearing. It had little strawberries on it. After I finished, my grandmother clapped and said, "Oh, Margot, you're so clever." And my mother, without missing a beat, said, "Margot is the bright one. Tess is the good one." I remember looking at Tess. She was 5. She was sitting on the floor near the fireplace, holding a yellow notebook against her chest. She had a sunflower sticker on the front of it. She'd had that notebook for as long as I could remember. She carried it everywhere. I remember she looked up when my mother said the sentence. She looked at me, and then she looked back down at her notebook and opened it and pretended to read. She couldn't read yet, she was 5, but she pretended, because she wanted to be doing something other than being looked at. Long pause. I didn't think about that moment again for 27 years. I want to tell you about the dinner table. We had a square oak table in our dining room, 4 chairs, my father at the head, my mother at the foot. Tess and I on opposite sides. Tess's chair was always slightly pulled out, slightly askew, like she'd just gotten up, like she wasn't quite sitting all the way in. My mother never noticed. I noticed. I noticed because every time I sat down, my chair was already perfect, pushed in, waiting for me. Sometimes there was a little pillow on it because my mother thought I should sit a little higher to see better. Tess didn't get a pillow. Tess sat slightly slumped and slightly off, and nobody ever moved her chair for her. Beat, for 18 years, my sister sat slightly to the side of the table in her own house. Pause. I'm sorry. I have to stop for a second. I'm telling you this, and my voice sounds normal, but I want you to know, I'm not okay. I haven't been okay since I figured this out. There is no version of this story where I come out clean. I want you to understand that going in. I am not the hero of this story. I am the reason it had to be told. Let me tell you about the school play. I was 11. Tess was 8. Our elementary school did The Wizard of Oz every spring, and that year Tess was cast as Dorothy. Dorothy, the lead. My quiet, careful, sunflower notebook little sister. She got the lead. I remember being surprised. I remember my mother being surprised. I remember my mother saying something at the dinner table that night. I can't remember her exact words, but the feeling of them was, "Are you sure, sweetheart?" That's a lot of lines. Tess just nodded. She said she wanted to do it. She spent 2 months memorizing every word. Not just her lines, everyone's lines. She used to whisper them to herself while she washed the dishes. I'd hear her in the kitchen at night. Toto, I've a feeling we're not in Kansas anymore. The night of the play, she was incredible. I want you to understand, my sister, my 5-year-old, who pretended to read because she didn't know how. My sister, who never got the pie, she stood on that stage at 8 years old and she was luminous. The audience gave her a standing ovation. My mother took a photograph at the end. Tess in the middle of the stage, arms full of flowers, smiling like she'd been holding her breath for 8 years and finally remembered how to exhale. A week later, my mother had the photograph printed and framed and hung in the hallway. Except, pause, she had it cropped. She cropped Tess out. She kept the audience. She kept the stage. She kept the flowers on the floor. But somehow, in the cropping, Tess's face ended up just outside the frame. You could see her arm. You could see one shoulder. You could see the edge of her costume. You couldn't see her face. Long pause. When my father asked why, my mother laughed and said the framing just worked better that way. The photograph hung in that hallway for 19 years. I walked past it every single day of my childhood, and I never asked the question. I never asked why isn't Tess's face in this picture. Not once. That's the part I can't forgive myself for. Not the cropping, the not asking. Pause. I had eyes. I had a voice. I had a mouth that worked. I just didn't use it, because using it would have meant noticing. And noticing would have meant losing something I didn't even know I was holding on to. People asked me when I finally told this story to my husband Daniel, when I finally told my therapist, when I finally said it out loud. They asked me, did you know? Margot, did you know what was happening to her? And the honest answer, the answer that costs me something every time I say it, is yes. Sort of. The way you know a song is playing in another room. The way you know it's cold outside without going out. I knew the way comfortable people know things, which is to say, I knew just enough not to ask. There's a kind of knowing that protects you, and there's a kind of knowing that costs you. I picked the first kind, for 20 years. And then last year, I went home to clean out my childhood bedroom because my parents were finally selling the house on Linden Street, and I found something under a loose floorboard. I'll tell you what it was in a minute, but first, I have to tell you about Aunt Verna. Aunt Verna is my mother's older sister. She's 81 years old. She lives alone in a small house in Briar Hill with a cat named Sunday and a garden that has gotten away from her. Aunt Verna called me 3 weeks after I found the thing under the floorboard. She said she'd heard I was poking around the past. She said she had something she'd been waiting 40 years to tell me. I drove out to her house on a Tuesday afternoon. It was raining that day too. Different rain, harder rain, and Sunday the cat was sitting in the window watching me come up the walk like I owed her money. Aunt Verna made tea. She didn't ask me how I was. She didn't ask about Daniel or work or anything normal. She just put a cup of tea in front of me and sat down across the kitchen table, and she said, Margot, your mother always wanted to be the bright one. She wasn't, so she made one. Long pause. She let that sit. She didn't say anything else for a long time. I drank my tea. The tea was too hot. I didn't say anything. And then Aunt Verna said, you were a child. You didn't ask to be cast. But you've been a grown woman for 15 years, sweetheart, and you're still playing the part. Pause. I want to tell you that I argued with her. I want to tell you that I defended myself. I want to tell you that I said something righteous and complicated and emotionally intelligent. I didn't. I cried into a cup of tea in an old woman's kitchen while her cat watched me from the windowsill, and I cried for a long time. Aunt Verna didn't reach across the table. She didn't tell me it was okay. She didn't tell me I was forgiven. She just let me cry. Because she knew the truth, there was nothing to forgive yet. I hadn't done anything yet. The crying wasn't repair. The crying was just feeling. Beaten feeling by itself costs the other person nothing. When I left her house, she stood on the porch and she said one more thing. She said, your sister has been waiting for you her whole life. Don't make her wait one more day. I drove home and I didn't go to Tess. I went home. I went to bed. I told myself I needed time to think. That was a coward's decision. I want to name it for what it was. Pause. I'm not done telling you about my cowardice. There's more. Let me back up. Because I need to tell you what I found under the floorboard. The house on Linden Street was being sold. My parents had finally agreed, after years of resistance from my mother, to downsize. My father had a knee that didn't work anymore. My mother had a back that was failing. The yellow house with its narrow stairs had become a liability. I drove up on a Saturday in October to help clean out my old bedroom. Tess was supposed to come too. She didn't. She'd told my mother she had to work. Tess and I hadn't spoken in nearly 2 years. Not because of any fight. Just silence. The kind of silence that grows like ivy. You don't notice it taking over the house until you can't open the windows anymore. I thought she was being difficult. I thought she was sulking. I thought a lot of things that day. Driving up Route 6 to Briar Hill, that I'm ashamed of now. My old room was at the back of the house. Pink walls, my mother had picked the color. A window looking out at a maple tree that had grown taller than the roof. I sat on the floor and started sorting through boxes. I found my old yearbooks. A trophy from a spelling bee, a pressed flower in a book of poetry. Normal things. The artifacts of a celebrated childhood. And then, when I moved the bookshelf to clean behind it, the floorboard underneath shifted. Just a little, just enough. I knelt down. I pried it up. There was a metal lockbox underneath it, the kind you'd buy at a hardware store in 1990 for $10. Rusted at the corners. Not locked. I opened it. Inside was a yellow notebook. With a sunflower sticker on the front. The sticker was faded, almost bone white, but I recognized it the way you recognize your own face. Long pause, it was Tess's notebook. The one she'd carried since she was 5. I didn't know she'd ever stopped carrying it. I'd assumed she'd grown out of it. I'd never asked. Why was it under the floorboard in my bedroom? I sat down on the floor of my pink childhood bedroom, and I opened the notebook and I started to read. And what I read in those next 2 hours rearranged everything I thought I knew about my own life. I'm going to tell you what was in the notebook, but before I do, I need to set the scene, because I want you to feel it the way I felt it. It was 4 in the afternoon. The October light was coming through the maple tree, and the maple tree had turned that specific kind of yellow that only October gives you. There was a small spider on the windowsill that wasn't moving. The house was quiet because my parents had gone out to get coffee. I had a notebook in my hands that wasn't mine, and I was about to read it. I want you to know, the entire time I was reading it, I told myself I'd put it back when I was done. I told myself I was just looking. I told myself it was fine. I was lying to myself, the way I had been lying to myself for 20 years. The notebook wasn't a diary. That's the first thing I want you to know. I expected a diary. I expected, dear diary, today my sister Margot got the bigger piece of cake and I cried in the bathroom. That's what I was prepared for. Petty grievances, sibling resentment, the normal heartbreak of being a little sister. It wasn't a diary, it was letters. Hundreds of them, spanning 15 years. From age 6 to age 21, every single one of them addressed to me. Long pause. Dear Margot, today you taught me how to tie my shoes. You used the bunny ears way. I will use the bunny ears way for the rest of my life because it is your way. I love you so much.
Tess, age 6. Dear Margot, Mom said you got an A on your spelling test. I got an A too. I didn't tell her. I'm saving it for you.
I'll tell you on the bus tomorrow because you are better at being happy for me than she is. Tess, age 7. Dear Margot, I had a bad dream. I came into your room and you were asleep. I didn't want to wake you up because you have school tomorrow. I sat on the floor by your bed for a while and then I went back to my room. I think I just wanted to make sure you were still there. Tess, age 8. Long pause. I want to stop reading these to you for a second. I want you to understand I had spent my entire childhood thinking my sister was fine. I had spent my entire childhood thinking she was quiet. I had spent my entire childhood thinking she didn't like me. Because she was withdrawn, because she didn't seek me out, because she seemed perfectly content to be in another room. I had no idea. I had no idea that the reason she didn't seek me out was because she was afraid of bothering me. I had no idea that the reason she was in another room was because she'd been taught, quietly, daily, over years, that my room was where the bright things happened, and her room was where the good ones did. I had no idea she had spent every single day of her childhood loving me from behind a wall I didn't know I was building. There were more letters. Dear Margot, you played Glinda in the school play after I played Dorothy. Glinda is a smaller part, but you got more flowers than I did. I don't know why that happened, I'm not asking. I just want you to know I clapped the loudest for you. Tess, age 10. Pause, I have to interrupt here, because here's the part I didn't tell you about the school play. The next year, the school did The Wizard of Oz again. I auditioned. I got cast as Glinda. A smaller part than Dorothy, but my mother threw a party for me at our house after opening night. She invited the neighbors. She baked a cake. When Tess had played Dorothy the year before, the lead role, the one she'd memorized every line of, my mother had not thrown a party. She had not baked a cake. She had cropped Tess out of the photograph and hung it in the hallway. Long pause, and I had eaten cake at my own party in front of my sister, and I had not asked the question, where Tess's party? I was 12. I was old enough to ask. I didn't. I ate the cake. Dear Margot, you're going to college. Mom says you got into your first choice. I am so proud of you. I don't know how to tell you that without sounding like I want you to stay. I do want you to stay, but not enough to ask. Tess, age 15. Dear Margot, you met a boy named Daniel. I saw a photo. He looks like he laughs a lot. I hope he laughs at your jokes and not at other people's. You always made me laugh. I miss being laughed at by you. Tess, age 17. Dear Margot, I got into college too. Mom didn't tell you, did she? It's not your fault. I just want you to know. Tess, age 18. Long pause, I didn't know. My sister got into college and nobody told me. She wrote me a letter about it. She put the letter in a notebook. She put the notebook in a lockbox. She put the lockbox under a floorboard in my bedroom because she wanted me to find it. She wanted me to find it. Pause, she'd been leaving them there the whole time, hoping. Some part of her, some 6-year-old, 8-year-old, 15-year-old, 18-year-old part of her, had been hoping I would walk into my room one day and notice the floorboard and look and see her. I was 32 when I looked. She'd been waiting 26 years. Long pause. The last letter was dated 4 years ago. She was 21. It said, Dear Margot, I don't think I'm going to write any more of these. I love you. I'm tired. I hope someday you find these and know that I tried. Tess, that was the last one. And there were 3 blank pages after it. And then the notebook ended. I sat on the floor of my pink childhood bedroom with a notebook in my hands and a spider on the windowsill that still wasn't moving. And I made a sound I have never made before in my life. It wasn't a cry. It wasn't a scream. It was the sound a person makes when they realize they have been wrong about everything that matters. Silence. When my parents came home from getting coffee, I had the notebook in my lap and my face was wet, and my mother walked into my old bedroom and saw me and said, Oh, sweetheart, what's wrong? And I looked up at her, and I looked at this woman who had said the sentence, this woman who had cropped the photograph, this woman who had thrown the party. And I said, You knew. She blinked. She said, Knew what, darling? Long pause. I want to tell you that she knew. I want to tell you that her face cracked and she confessed and we had a Hollywood moment in my pink bedroom and everything resolved. It didn't. She really didn't know. Or she'd convinced herself so completely that she didn't, that knowing was no longer available to her. That's worse, I think. Beat cruelty you can confront. Self-deception is a fortress. I put the notebook in my bag. I walked out of the house. I drove 4 hours back to my own apartment in Pittsburgh. Daniel was asleep on the couch with the TV on. I sat in the kitchen until the sun came up. And I started making a list. The list was every single thing I was going to do to make this right, not to make myself feel better. I want to be clear about that. The list was not for me. The list was for Tess. Item 1, I was going to give up the inheritance. My parents had a house, a retirement account, some savings. The will divided it 60-40, 60 to me, 40 to Tess, 60-40. Because I had seen that will when I was 25 and my mother showed me, proudly. Because you'll know what to do with it, sweetheart. Your sister means well, but she's not practical. I had not argued. I had not said, Mom, why is it not 50-50? I had not said, Mom, my sister is a kindergarten teacher who lives in a 1-bedroom apartment with a husband who works 2 jobs. And I am a marketing director with a husband who is a software engineer. I had not said any of those things. I had let her hand me the favoritism in writing, and I had folded it up and I had put it in a drawer. Beat item 1. Give it back. I called the family lawyer the next Monday. His name is Mr. Harlan. He's been the lawyer for our family for 40 years. He's known me since I was a baby. I told him I wanted to make a binding agreement that, upon my parents' passing, my share of the inheritance would be redirected to Tess. He was quiet for a long time on the phone. Then he said, Margot, have you spoken to your mother about this? I said no, and I'm not going to. He said she will not be pleased. I said, Mr. Harlan, with respect, I am not making this decision to please my mother. I am making it to undo something my mother did. He drew up the papers. I signed them on a Tuesday morning. I cried in the parking lot. Not because I was losing money. I want to be very honest with you. I was crying because I knew even as I had signed signs in the papers, this still wasn't enough. Pause. You can't pay for a childhood. You can't refund a sister. The papers were just paper. But the papers were a start. Item 2 was harder. Item 2 was the apology. I started writing it that night. I sat at my kitchen table with a yellow legal pad. I want to point out the color, yellow, because the universe has a sense of humor about these things. And I started writing. The first draft was 3 pages long. It was about me. It was about my journey of discovery. It was about how I felt when I found the notebook. It was about my growth. I read it back the next morning and I felt sick. Because here's the thing about apologies. There are 2 kinds. There's the kind where you say, I'm sorry I hurt you, and here's how I understand the hurt I caused. And there's the kind where you say, I'm sorry I hurt you, and now let me tell you all about how bad I feel about it. The first one is an apology. The second one is a request for absolution. It's the wound all over again, dressed up as repair. I hurt you, and now I need you to take care of my feelings about hurting you. I had written the second kind. I tore it up. I tried again. 3 more drafts, each one a little better, each one a little less about me. The 4th draft, I sent it. I emailed it to Tess. I should not have emailed it. I should have driven to her house. I should have shown up. I should have stood at her door in the rain like I am now and let her see my face. Instead, I emailed it because I was a coward. Beat, she didn't reply. For 6 weeks, she didn't reply. And Suknik. And during those 6 weeks, my mother called me 47 times. I want to tell you about the conversation I had with my mother. She came to my house, uninvited, with a casserole. Lorraine has always believed casseroles can solve anything. She brought one when I broke my arm in 4th grade. She brought one when Daniel and I bought our house. She brought one to her sister's funeral. She showed up at my door with a tuna casserole in a glass dish, and she said, Sweetheart, we need to talk about this nonsense with the will. Long pause. I let her in. I should not have let her in. I let her in because I was 32 years old and I was still a child in front of my mother. I let her in because some part of me, some part I am ashamed of, still wanted her to be proud of me. That's the narrator flaw, by the way. The thing I told you I'd tell you. Here it is. Even while I was trying to do the right thing, I still wanted to be praised for doing it. I still wanted my mother to look at me and say, Margot, I'm proud of you for finally seeing your sister. She was never going to say that. She couldn't say that. Because to say that would be to admit she had been the one who taught me not to see her in the first place. I sat at my kitchen table. My mother sat across from me. The casserole sat between us getting cold, and I said the sentence back to her. Margot is the bright one. Tess is the good one. I just said it. Flat. No inflection. The way you'd read it off a piece of paper. Pause. My mother went very still. She said, What? I said, You said it. My whole life. You said it like it was a compliment. It wasn't a compliment, Mom. It was a sentence. You were sentencing her, and you used me as the bailiff. She said, Margot, that was a long time ago. And I said, Don't. I said, Don't, Mom. Please. I am asking you. I am begging you. Don't make this about you defending yourself. Don't make this about your intentions. I know your intentions. I am her sister. I lived in your house. I know what you meant. I know you didn't think you were doing it. I know you loved us both. None of that matters, because she carried the sentence anyway, for 20 years, and I helped her carry it. My mother started to cry. And for the first time in my life, I didn't reach across the table to comfort her. Long pause, I let her cry, because comforting her would have been one more way of choosing her over Tess. One more way of saying your feelings, Mom, are the ones that matter in this house. I didn't say anything cruel. I didn't yell. I just sat there, and I let her cry. And after a while, she stopped, and she picked up her casserole dish, and she walked out of my kitchen, and she didn't look at me. I want to tell you what I saw later. I'm only going to know this because Aunt Verna told me. After my mother left my house that day, she drove home, and she went into her kitchen, and she stood in front of the refrigerator, where there is a small framed photograph of Tess as a baby. Just Tess, by herself. The kind of photograph that gets pushed to the back of the fridge gallery to make room for newer things. And she picked up the photograph, and she held it in her hands for a long time, and she whispered, I tried. Aunt Verna was there. She was sitting in the kitchen. My mother had not noticed her. She said it. I tried. Long pause. Here's the thing. I believe her. I believe that she tried. I believe that on some level, She knew what she was doing, and she did it anyway, because she didn't know how to do anything else. I believe that she loved both of her daughters. I believe that she could not love them equally because she could not even love herself fully. And the parts of herself she was ashamed of, she put on Tess, and the parts of herself she wanted to be, she put on me. I believe all of that. And it still doesn't undo a single page of that notebook. Belief is not repair. Understanding is not repair. Sympathy for the person who hurt your sister is not repair. Only showing up is repair. And showing up is the part nobody wants to do. It took me 4 more months to drive to Tess's house. 4 months of drafting and redrafting. 4 months of therapy. 4 months of Daniel watching me like I might break. And being kind and patient and never once telling me what to do, even though I asked him 100 times. He kept saying, "This isn't mine to solve, Margot. I love you, but this one is yours." He was as right. Tess lives in a small town called Wexford, 2 hours north of where I live in Pittsburgh. She married Emmett 4 years ago. I went to the wedding. I gave a toast. I cried at appropriate moments. I had not at that point read the notebook. I had no idea who I was at that wedding. I was a stranger standing up in front of strangers giving a speech about a sister I did not actually know. Long pause. When I think about that toast now, I want to crawl out of my skin. She let me give it. She smiled. She thanked me afterward. She hugged me. And Emmett, her husband, Emmett looked at me, just for a second, with something in his eyes that I didn't understand at the time. I understand now. He was looking at me the way you look at a person who is hurting someone you love, and who doesn't know they're doing it. He was looking at me with a kind of grief. Grief that I existed, and that he could not protect his wife from me without taking something away from her, because she loved me. Even then, even after everything, she loved me. That's the thing that almost destroyed me when I finally understood it. She loved me the whole time. Pause. She wrote me letters. She came to my room when she had bad dreams. She clapped the loudest at the play I took from her. She got into college and tried to tell me. She wrote me a final letter at 21 that ended with, "I hope someday you find these and know that I tried." She tried. Long pause. I never tried back. That's the sentence I can't get past. That's the one I can't dress up or contextualize or make beautiful with language. I never tried back. Beat I just received. I drove to Wexford on a Saturday in March. It was raining. It is always raining in this story. I don't know why that is. Maybe because I cried so much that year that the world cried back. I don't know. Pause. I had the notebook on the passenger seat and a wrapped gift. The gift was small. It was a single sunflower seed in a small clay pot with a card that said, "I should have planted this with you when we were children." That's all the card said. I had agonized over it. Daniel had told me, "Margot, less is more here. She doesn't need more words from you. She needs fewer." He was right. I drove for 2 hours. I didn't play music. I just listened to the rain. Pause. I got to her street at 4:13 in the afternoon. I parked across from her house. Their house is small, blue with white shutters. There's a wind chime on the porch that's missing one piece. There's a welcome mat that says hello. I sat in the car for 27 minutes. I know it was 27 minutes because I watched the clock beat, and then I got out of the car, and I walked across the street, and I went up the walk, and I climbed 3 steps, and I stood on the porch, and I am standing here right now. I'm telling you all of this from the porch. Long pause. I haven't knocked yet. Okay, I knocked. Pause. The door opened, and it was Tess. She looked at me, and here's the thing I will carry with me for the rest of my life. She didn't recognize me. Not at first. For a full 3 seconds, she looked at me like I was a stranger. It wasn't because I look different. I look the same hair, same eyes, the face she'd known her whole life. She didn't recognize me because she wasn't expecting me. Because in her head, in her version of the world, I would never show up at her door in the rain with a wrapped gift and a notebook full of letters as she'd written to a sister she'd given up on. I had become so absent in her life that my actual physical presence didn't compute. That's what 20 years of being the favorite earns you. The right to become unrecognizable to the person who loved you most. Long pause. She finally said, "Margot?" I said, "Hi." That's it. Hi. That's what I said. I had 4 months of drafts in my pocket, and I said, "Hi." She didn't open the door wider. She didn't invite me in. She just stood there. And I saw her glance over her shoulder into the house. And I knew she was looking for Emmett. Emmett came to the door. He saw me. His face did something complicated. He said, "Tess, Honey, do you want me to? She said, no, it's okay. And then she said it again, softer, almost to herself. It's okay. She stepped back. She opened the door wider. She let me in. I sat on their couch. They sat across from me on two separate chairs. Emmett held Tessa's hand. He kept holding it the whole time. He never let go. I want to tell you what I'd planned to say. Because what I'd planned to say was beautiful. I'd written it. I'd practiced it. I had it memorized. I opened my mouth. I started. I said, Tess, I came here today because I found something in our old house, and reading it changed me, and I stopped because I heard it. I heard myself making the apology about me. Again. Just like the first draft, just like the email, just like every single thing I had ever done in our entire relationship. I found something. Reading it changed me. Me. Long pause. I stopped. I put my hands in my lap. I looked at her. She was watching me. Not unkindly, just watching, the way you watch something to see what it does next. And I said, I'm going to start over. Tess, I am so sorry. I am so sorry. I was your sister and I let them make you small. I had eyes and a voice and a mouth that worked and I let them make you small. I am so sorry. Silent, she didn't say anything. She just looked at me. And after a long minute, she said, did you know? And I said the hardest thing I have ever said in my life. I said I knew enough. Not all of it, but enough. And I chose not to ask. She nodded. She didn't cry. She said, thank you for not lying. Long pause, and then, and I am telling you this because it is the truth. And because I want you to understand exactly what kind of person my sister is. She said, do you want some tea? She offered me tea. After everything, she offered me tea. Because that's who she is. She has always been the good one. My mother got that part right. She just never understood that good wasn't a consolation prize. It was the whole point. I had been the bright one, the shiny one, the performance. Tess had been the substance. Tess had been the real thing. I had thought I was the gift my parents gave each other. I was wrong. The gift was Tess. They just didn't know how to unwrap her. I gave her the notebook. I gave her the sunflower seed in the clay pot. I gave her the card. She read the card. Twice. She didn't say anything about it. She opened the notebook. She turned to the last page. The one she'd written when she was 21. I hope someday you find these and know that I tried. She touched her own handwriting, lightly, like it was a person. And she said, I forgot I wrote that. I want to tell you that we hugged, that we cried, that we had a Hollywood reunion. We didn't. She let me sit on her couch for 2 hours. She made me tea. She asked about Daniel. She asked about work. She talked about her job. She's a kindergarten teacher. Did I tell you that? She talked about her students. She told me a story about a 5-year-old who had insisted on coming to school as a pirate every day for a month. We talked like two people who barely knew each other. Because that's what we were. When I left, she stood on the porch with Emmett. I walked to my car. I turned around to wave. She waved back. And then she said, and this is the line I will carry with me forever. She said, Margot, come back next month, okay? Long pause. Not come back tomorrow. Not come back next week. Not let's start over right now. Come back next month. Because she was being honest. She was telling me, I can let you in a little, but I can't let you in all the way. Not yet. Maybe not ever. But you can come back next month and we'll see. I said, okay, I'll come back next month. I came back the next month. And the month after. And the month after that. That was 8 months ago. Pause, I want to tell you where things are now. Because I owe you the truth about that too. Tess and I are not best friends. We are not yet what I wanted us to be when I drove to her house that first time in March. I had really pictured. A reunion, a big one, sisters reunited, tears. Phone calls every day. A Hallmark movie. That's not what this is. What this is two women slowly, carefully, learning each other for the first time, like two people on a first date that never ends. She tells me things about her childhood I didn't know. Some of them are devastating. Some of them are funny. All of them are hers. I listen. I don't try to fix it. I don't try to explain it. I don't apologize for things she hasn't brought up yet. I just listen. That's the discipline of it. Listening without trying to make it about you. It is harder than I thought it would be. My mother and I don't talk much anymore. Not because I'm punishing her. I'm not. I don't have the energy to perform the daughter she wants me to be. And I don't yet know how to be a different one. So we send polite texts. We see each other at holidays. I don't say the sentence anymore. Neither of us. By unspoken agreement. My father is quieter than he used to be. I think he sees more than my mother does. I think he always did. I think he's grieving the family he didn't speak up about. And I think that's a private grief I can't help him with. I just sit with him sometimes. We don't say much. It's enough. Daniel has been a miracle through all of this. He has loved me through a year where I was not particularly lovable. He has reminded me, gently, that becoming a better person is not a performance. It is just the small, daily work of doing the next right thing. He has not let me make the repair about myself. He has held me when I cried about my mother. He has not let me confuse my grief with Tess's. He has been very, very good at the boundary between them. Aunt Verna died in August. Pneumonia. Quick! She was 81. At her funeral, I sat next to Tess in the second pew. We held hands. We did not say anything. We did not need to. That was the first time my sister held my hand in 15 years. Long pause last weekend. I had Tess and Emmett over for dinner, just the four of us. Tess, Emmett, Daniel, me. I set the table myself. I pulled out 4 chairs. I made sure all 4 were pushed in evenly. I made sure Tess's chair had a cushion on it, the same cushion as mine, the same height. Beat, she noticed. I saw her notice. She didn't say anything. She just sat down, and she pulled her chair all the way in, not slightly askew, not slightly to the side. She sat at the table like it was hers. Pause, and I sat across from her. And I looked at her, and I thought, there she is. There is my sister. She has been here this whole time. She put the yellow notebook on the table between us. She had brought it. I had given it back to her months ago. I didn't know she still had it. She said, I'm going to keep writing in it. I said, it was always okay. She said, I know, but I'm going to ask anyway from now on. Long pause. I want to come back to where we started, because I told you at the beginning of this video that the closing image would echo the opening one. I was standing on a porch in the rain, holding a wrapped gift, afraid to deliver it, afraid she wouldn't open the door, afraid she would. A year later, I am standing in my own kitchen. There is no rain. There is bread in the oven. My sister is in the next room laughing at something my husband said. Her husband is showing my husband a wood-burning project he's working on. I am the favorite child no more. I gave it up. I gave it away. I shipped it back. And here is the secret nobody told me. I am lighter without it. Being the favorite was not a gift. Being the favorite was a job. It was a job I did not apply for. It was a job I was assigned at 5 years old when my mother said bright and good. And I started performing brightness, because performance was what got me loved. It was a job that asked me every day to be just slightly more than I was, so that my sister could be just slightly less. I quit the job. And what I got back was a life, a real one, with a sister in it. I used to think when I was a child, when I was a teenager, when I was a young woman, I used to think the highest love I could earn was my mother's attention. Now I know the highest love I will ever earn is my sister's patience. Long pause. She is patient with me. She is patient in a way I do not deserve. She is patient because she loved me first and she loved me longest. And even after I gave her every reason to stop, she did not. That is the love I want to spend the rest of my life trying to be worthy of. Pause. I want to leave you with one last thing. When I was reading the notebook that first afternoon, sitting on the floor of my old pink bedroom, I noticed that there were 3 blank pages at the very back, after the last letter she wrote at 21. 3 blank pages. I thought at first that they were just unused, that she had stopped writing and the pages were left over. But last weekend, when Tess put the notebook on my kitchen table, I asked her about the blank pages. I said, why 3? And she said, I left them for you. Long pause. I left 3 pages at the end, in case you ever want to write back. Silent, she had left me 3 blank pages. When she was 21, when she had decided to stop writing, she had not closed the door. She had left me 3 pages. She had been waiting 26 years, with 3 pages. Pause. I have written on one of them. So far, it says, Dear Tess, I am sorry I was late. I am so glad you waited. I love you, Margot. That's all I've written so far. I am saving the other 2 pages, for a long time from now, for something I haven't earned yet. I used to think being chosen was the same as being loved. Now I know being chosen is just being chosen. It is what they did to me. It is what they did to her. It is not love. It was never love. It was a casting decision. Love is what my sister did. For 26 years, in a notebook, in a lockbox, under a floorboard, in a pink bedroom, in a house on Linden Street, love is what she is still doing every time she lets me come back. Pauses. If you are watching this and you were the favorite, I want you to do something. I want you to call the one you weren't favorited against. I want you to call them this week. Not to apologize for everything, just to call, just to say their name out loud and ask how they are. And then I want you to listen. Just listen. You cannot undo it. But you can start. And starting is the first thing that is not nothing. If you are watching this and you were the forgotten one, I want you to know that some of us are coming back. Some of us are facing you. We are late. We are so late, and we are still coming. Long pause, so I want to ask you something I genuinely want to know. Because I am still figuring this out, and I think we all are. Were you ever the favorite, or were you the forgotten one? And whichever side you were on, what do you wish the other side understood? Pause, tell me below. I'll be reading. I'll be reading every single one. Because this time, finally, I am going to listen.